Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. Everybody to Midnight's Edge After Dark. It's Tuesday. How's everybody doing tonight? We have a full panel already. We have the one, the only, the greatest YouTuber alive, Mike, the Mexican Iron Man. How are you doing, my friend?
Glad to be here. There's no evidence that I...
Well timed.
I was quick on the draw there.
Wow.
I was waiting for it. Waiting for it.
There is no evidence. Bam.
Wow.
Exhibit A.
We didn't even practice that.
Nope.
Hi, everybody.
I love you, Mikey. I missed you. How you been?
Very well, sir. Very well, sir. Let's rock. Let's see what we're going to talk about.
Of course, I miss
today.
you if I feel like I haven't talked to you for a day.
I know that. I was about to say that. I'm like, yeah. Although I'm mad at you.
Yeah. Why is that?
Guess what you ate today that was not on your meal plan?
Carrots.
You were eating pizza.
That looked like pizza. It was weird.
Right. Right. Did it taste like carrots or did it taste like carrots or did it taste like pizza?
I'm pretty sure it might have been one of those like vegetarian deals where they make it all look like it's the real thing and it's not. And it's 10 times worse for you than the real thing.
Today's Tuesday and you've already used up all the Jenny Craig points for the rest of the month.
I only ate 2 pieces and it's half Nick's fault. And I'm only blaming him because Ninja Turtles.
Because pizza.
And I saw that stupid advertisise, and I'm not really blaming Nick. Nick had nothing to do with this.
I'll gladly take the fall. I'll take the fall anyways.
I knew you would.
9 3/4 days left in the month, so just don't eat, and you'll make your.
Well, I saw that stupid advertisement, and I'm like, God damn it! Now I got to eat something, and they're the only place in town that delivers. And Culture Casino's here. If he lived in town, he'd deliver.
That's true, indeed.
But as I'm doing this, why don't I finish introducing everybody? Welcome, Culture Casino. A little late to the party, but glad you're here.
I'm sorry. I apologize for being 3 minutes late. I had to get a drink, go to the bathroom. You know, regular stuff.
Dry your hair. Yeah, we get you.
Dry my hair.
Brush it.
Hell yeah, brush it, comb it.
Brush my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I got a pair of Canadians here, like a pair of aces. Script Doctor, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Had a very busy day. Got a chance to take a break and see a comedy film, and happy to hang out with you all.
Interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that. And CC also got to see a movie today, so we'll talk to him a little bit about that as well. How you doing, CC?
I'm doing all right. Had some snowstorms close the highway here. So
Really?
Yeah. So I've been stuck in my campgrounds for a few extra days than I planned, and well,
you must be
Canada.
pretty far north. Well, yeah,
it's Canada. You know,
Canada on the mountain.
It's the middle of fucking summer, though. Like, still, I mean,
but it's still Canada.
Yeah, and the rest of the world is summer.
Isn't now when you've got like 30 days of light and then you got 30 days of dark coming soon? Or
I'm not that far north. We get about 3 hours of darkness here, but
Yeah.
I figured I'd pass the time, and I watched that movie, that Elemental movie. So
In a
cover that
couple of
later.
weeks, because it is winter in Australia right now. In a couple of weeks, it'll be both winter and Canada and Australia at the same time. Only time in the on planet Earth where two hemispheres are experiencing winter at the same time.
So basically, Wisconsin all year round.
Well, what? There's still snow in Wisconsin right now.
It's always a possibility. The chance is never zero.
Wow.
He's
Crazy.
actually right.
I
on
shit
that.
you.
I
I
can
was
confirm.
gonna say, I
can
shit
confirm.
you not.
I can confirm on Tom's behalf.
We could go from 90 degrees, and then all of a sudden the next day it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's awfully chilly here. It starts raining. Next thing you know, it's fucking snowing. All in a matter of 36 to 24 to 12 hours in some cases. Like you could be, you never know what to expect. And laughs. Minnesota's
That's what
the
happened
same.
here.
I say
It was
Minnesota's the
90,
same, I'm sure. So
then-
yeah.
Then there's a snowfall warning for 18 inches. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, we call that
Jesus.
Thursday here in Canada.
Thursday, yeah. Now, granted, it's probably been a good 20, 30 years since well, maybe not. I was going to say since we've had snow in June. That's not impossible. I was going to say it's actually probably been sooner than that. But anyway, we got clobbering times here. How you doing, Clobby?
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Good all my good friends on the panel and in the chat. Good to see you all, man. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Glad to have you here. And yeah, I'm sure it's the same in Michigan and possibly Iowa as well. Those few states
A lot
all
of
share
the northern border states, I'm pretty
share
sure, a lot
similar-
of similar
yeah.
weather patterns to Canada.
pretty much. We just don't have the daylight issues and the nighttime issues like you guys do. We have normal daylights and nighttime hours pretty much. But Nick's also here. How you doing? All 32 flavors of you.
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Obviously, it was a very eventful weekend in the entertainment world because of a huge bomb that erupted. Hold on, not one, but two huge bombs. So happy to talk about. Hail to our chat. Hail to our mods. Let's get talking about all this stuff. And yes, I can confirm, being in Illinois, you wake up in the morning, you have to wear a jacket, your windows are full of ice, and then you get out of work at 2 p.m. and it's blazing saddles hot.
Wait. Blazing Saddles. You can't call it that. That means it would burn right through your britches.
Oh, man.
We got one super chat from a fellow Wisconsinite, Warrior of Justice. Says, what's the difference between me in 8th grade and a Jew? I can't. Oh. God, dude. I can't even do that one. Yeah, there you go.
They just keep getting spicier.
He does. Clobber Lane, hello, CC, Bat Tom, Doctor Script. That's part of the reason we were late. Mexican Iron Man, Nicolas Cage, because I was doing a little recreation of the Flash in the background here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to you recording and making that video.
Oh my God, is this what I think it is? Yes, it's the Batmobile. Now don't touch it and don't ever look at it again because it's not coming back. Just pretend we didn't look at it. Remember, berries? That's enough.
I mean, you got two of them.
Well, technically like 3 or 4, but who's counting? Irate Specialist says, Culture, now is your chance to tell us your favorite time travel movie. Oh, I'm sure people have been dying to find out what that is. Feel free to use as much detail as you feel necessary.
All right. Tombstone is my favorite time travel movie.
How was that a time travel movie?
Go with it, Mikey.
It took me back to a time when things were simpler. There were good guys, there were bad guys, and there was everything in between. And
Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell, that's all you need.
Oh, that's true.
I don't want to go back to then. There was no asphalt and there was no HVAC working AC.
True, no AC. You got me with the AC.
Toilet paper was literally tree bark then. So, yeah.
Now, for those who don't know the joke, last night or the night before, sorry, we were on Culture's channel and everybody kept asking that question. So it's been an ongoing question and I'm glad to benefit from such things. Brightest Day Audiobooks and Science Fiction sends in $2. How you doing, buddy? This is Nick Weiser, flavor number 33. Ezra's Speed Forced Exit Ale. Ew. That sounds like nasty.
You remember on this channel many I guess last year I predicted that the Flash will be in and out of the zeitgeist as fast as the movie.
You were right. No, I remember that last summer we were all discussing how the movie would probably do maybe 400 or 500 at best worldwide. Dude, it's looking exactly as that. Maybe even worse.
The movie itself, I don't think is going to live on, but I think the impact it will have is going to live on, because I think I said it best when basically it's ironic that it's the movie. This movie hit a brick wall, and it's the movie about the fastest man alive, and it literally is the movie that took the longest to ever make.
So basically, just like every other DC movie, where we talk about the controversy around it and not the movie itself.
I think so. I think it's going to be a demarcation point, though, for not just DC, but almost all superhero movies possibly going forward. So we'll have to see on that. But Warrior Justice says Bat Tom kidnapped somebody too. Not that I know of, unless you count Robin. I'm on like my 4th Robin now. These kids die so easy. We're going to need another Robin. Next one, just like the last one. Hopefully this one's not as dumb. Kids do stupid things, especially if you coax them into it. I mean, TikTok's full of them. I mean,
yeah.
Is that where you're going to get your new Robins? TikTok?
Oh, hell yeah. Those kids will do anything. Instead of just the boy wonder, it's like, I wonder what that boy will do. You know, it's just like, he ate 12 Tide Pods and lived. I mean, that's something to that.
Funny but not funny how many emergency room visits are caused by TikTok.
Yes. Oh, I've got sidekick insurance. It's not cheap.
I'm sure it's not.
Speaking of the DC universe and the mess that it has been, this has been an article that's been going around, but I really wanted to break it down point for point, because for those who have been following along with us here, this is the article that when I read it, I almost wept, because I'm like, ha, I was right. And it confirms so many of the things I said, and I think vicariously probably confirms a lot more than what I said in a lot of ways. Yeah, so allow me to toot my own horn for just a little bit here on the Flash business and the whole DC business, because Hollywood Reporter put this out the other day, and it was weird because it was on my kid's birthday, so it was more of a birthday present for me. But inside the Flash ending, that cameo secretly filmed 6 months ago. DC Film had 3 separate endings, each overseen by different Warner Brothers regimes, spanning Walter Hamada, James Gunn, and Peter Safran.
Oh, they left out Tsujihara. They
did. Hollywood secrets have become notoriously hard to keep, but Warner Brothers and filmmakers of The Flash pulled off a doozy with the final moments of their DC film. After more than 25 years, George Clooney returned to the role of Bruce Wayne, marking a remarkable change of heart for an actor who was unequivocally done with the role. It was also a secret that the studio was able to keep tight closed. No, they didn't. I knew about this months ago. I just said it was stupid. In a mic drop moment, one that has left audiences howling, one of the Flash's final scenes shows Barry Allen on the phone with Bruce Wayne. The phone call comes after a climactic courthouse hearing, and Barry finally returning to his own Earth and timeline. So we think.
Well, that's Wayne pulls. That courthouse hearing wasn't climactic at all.
No, not really. And in fact, I argued earlier that the first that video would be inadmissible as evidence. Wayne pulls up the courthouse in his car and gets out. The assembled crowd parts to reveal Wayne, as played by Clooney, not the Ben Affleck version Barry expected. Clooney infamously played Batman and Bruce. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, this is the padding of the articles. To
get yeah. He told Stern in 2020 he didn't want to do it again. Clooney was known as a TV actor at the time. Blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares. Okay, it was a half-day shooting in January after a few phone calls. It was also the third ending crafted for the film, which director Andy Muschietti made through 3 separate regimes at Warner's. The Flash serves as a study of a movie that survived and evolved in a rapidly changing media landscape, facing the dictates of several sets of studio heads and a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. Multi-billion. The Flash began life under the studio regime run by Toby Emmerich.
That's
And
wrong.
his-
It was Kevin Tsujihara. Toby Emmerich came in afterwards because remember, 2013, Toby Emmerich was at Warner Brothers, but he didn't order the film. Like they got that wrong. Toby
He was
Emmerich
the president. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the president, but he was not head of the studios, and he started this before Walter Hamada even was considered to be coming in. Because remember, 2013 is when this movie started development in Greenland. Hollywood Reporter, do better. Come on, man.
Yeah. Well, we'll just say this is the made for TV movie version of the story then. Anyway, and Walter Hamada. Most of the shooting and post-production was undertaken under that leadership, with the movie as part of Hamada's plan to have Flash build to a major reset of the entire DC cinematic universe, departing from the one established by filmmaker Zack Snyder with Man of Steel a decade ago. Hamada planned a Flash sequel and then wanted to segue to a movie inspired by the 1980s classic comic event Crisis on Infinite Earths. The Flash, as it was originally conceived and shot, ended on the courthouse steps with Supergirl, played by Sasha Calle, and Batman, played by Michael Keaton. Now, this also confirms our reporting. What we were trying to say is that was also supposed to lead into Batgirl, setting up the MCU, who is already featured throughout the movie as a returned Batman. It was meant to highlight that Barry did not reset the timeline as he thought he did. It was an ending that was screen tested several times, one that reversed the deaths of Supergirl and Batman earlier in the film. And now also this Batman Beyond project that Kevin Smith is talking about, that's Batgirl.
Yeah. Oh, and also one thing to point out, it was Ann Sarnoff who wanted the DCU because she came in after Tsujihara was ousted. They'd already started enough principal photography by the time she arrived that she couldn't can the film because, again, Flash was pre-sold. So she tried to change it. And then after a couple of years with her at the helm, and then she was ejected during the merger, Zaslav came in and it's like, just get it done and get it out. And that's how we got to this point, as the article will continue.
And we'll keep going here because, there's more to this twist and turns. It's more of this is going to sound familiar to you guys, but you guys just got to understand how vindicating this is for me because for years I've been taking a lot of shit on Twitter and crap like that. However, the movie caught in the lightning storm that was Discovery's acquisition of Warner Brothers in 2022, Emmerich and Hamada were ousted, and Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav was on the hunt for an executive to run DC. In the meantime, Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy were installed as Warner Brothers Pictures Group chairpersons and CEOs. They were tasked with overseeing DC temporarily and suddenly, and certainly not unexpectedly, had their own plans. Now, this is when I was starting to talk about them doing a new universe, but with the same actors.
Yep.
And we'll get to that here. And also, I just stopped there because this also was kind of where James Gunn was being brought into the picture, and where I was saying they were courting him, but he was resistant, and he said that in his interview.
Yep.
And then, like Script Doctor posited, it was probably Peter Safran saying, "Look, I'll handle the business side, you handle the entertainment side," and that's exactly what ended up happening, basically.
And
so
Emmerich was technically ousted because he screwed up the Legendary deal, and Hamada was ousted because his contract wasn't renewed after the debut of Black Adam. So he was already on the way out.
And Toby Emmerich was there for too long any fucking
Toby
way.
Emmerich never should have been there in the first place. You are 100% right on that.
Yeah, and I said it because I said then it should have been Mike DeLuca all along.
Yeah.
Because he was the guy who helped make New Line what it was. And if you wanted to bring that kind of a flair, because that's where Toby Emmerich come from, full disclosure, for those who don't know. And I'm like, Toby Emmerich was not the dude who had jack shit to do with New Line. He was just an office guy. He got him in trouble more than anything. Yeah. Exactly.
And DeLuca should have been the choice from the very beginning. Tom and I think you and I've had this conversation many times. It always was and should have been.
Mike DeLuca was the guy that Robert Shea trusted the most, probably.
Yeah. And it was, I think, Barry Meyer that made the mistake of putting in Emmerich over DeLuca. Because he was the head, and he was responsible, I think, for the acquisition of New Line, or I think because New Line was what 2002. It was bought by Warner Brothers.
No, I think that was 2000.
Well, maybe it was sooner than that, right? I know.
No, well, here's what happened. Back in 1993 or 4, Ted Turner bought New Line, but the way Ted Turner ran it, he let New Line just run on their own, and he just gave them the money that whenever Bob asked for money, he'd go, here you go.
Yes.
As soon as he got basically the hostily taken over by Warner Brothers through the Turner Classic Movies deal, that's how they got their hands on New Line Cinema.
So that
would have been 2000 when?
I think that would have been the turn of the century. So I think it was post 2001.
Okay. So then when he was ousted is when they took over.
Yeah.
Shortly after is when Robert Shea was also shit canned out of there too.
So it would have been like the team of Terry Semel, Robert Daly, and Barry Mayer doing the buyout of Turner to get all of that stuff. That would have started in like 99 and been solidified by like 2002, 2003 ish. Yeah. And then Barry Meyer be the one that appointed Emmerich. Most likely he would have been the one that appointed Emmerich to his position.
And at that moment, when New Line went from being the little indie company that could to just being another
company with Lord of the Rings under its belt,
to just another conglomerate under Warner Brothers.
Because New Line was already doing Lord of the Rings before Warner acquired them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So that would be turn of the century. Exactly.
That was under Turner, technically. Yes.
Yeah.
And that, of course, if you want to hear more about, go check out our interview with Robert Shea. He talks about how basically that whole thing was a big fuck you to Weinstein.
It was a brilliantly done one.
Yeah. Anyway, a new Flash ending was conceived. This version was still on the courthouse steps, but now Callie Supergirl was joined by Superman, played by Henry Cavill, and Wonder Woman, played by Gal Gadot. Keaton also remained. DeLuca and Pam Abdi believed they were being strategic with the ending. Cavill was going to cameo for DC movie Black Adam and was being teed up to return in a role in a brand new Superman movie. Supergirl was retained because even though the executives were killing the development of a standalone Supergirl movie, they were open to her returning in some form and didn't want the last image of her being her death, basically.
So that would mean that Cavill and Gadot probably did that cameo piece in July or August.
Was that the September one?
I thought the September one was Black Adam.
You're probably right.
So I would assume they did that one before.
Or they did them at the same time.
Or at the same time, yeah. Could have.
And that would have been September, because that's what I was thinking. Because that's what I heard about this was around that time. I'd have to go back to my reporting. But that's where I said Cavill's back, and he's sitting on a possible contract, but they're not sure what they're going to do yet. And then that's when everything changed in November when Gunn came in the picture.
And it literally was hours after Black Adam bombed.
And see, that's the thing, is they knew going into that weekend that Black Adam was going to bomb.
Just like they knew going into this last weekend, Flash was going to bomb.
And I'm still trying to figure this out, dude. And if anybody else has any ideas why they would go off and announce that they're rebooting, unless a lot of that was to basically get The Rock to knock his shit off. And I also heard that they were just sick and tired of the Snyder fans.
I suspect their tactic was the traditional DC film slate is going out of business. Everything must go. It's under new management. See you next year type of thing. That's my thing of it. They knew that these movies were not going to be financial juggernauts to make the money back invested. They decided to go the angle of, we are rebooting it. You're still going to get these films, and we hope you enjoy them. But we know we are seeing the forest for the trees. We know these movies are not going to be good. Why hide it? We're going to tell you it's good when they come out, but we've already announced that we're going in a different direction. So pay attention to our actions, not what we say.
Because I would imagine when they got James Gunn on to do the Superman project, because he's already confirmed and other people have confirmed well ahead of time that he was working on that way before, at least 6 months or more, before he finally decided to take over head of DC Studios. My guess is they let him do that as almost like the Batman with Matt Reeves, as they were going to just let him do another Superman movie on the side, like a younger Superman
that's
movie.
The rumor that
that's what I think is going to happen.
Is that basically they said you can write a Superman script, pitch us the idea, and they said okay, let's go. And then they're like betting on if we can get him to commit further on this script, we might be able to commit him to run the studio. And I think that was their angle that Zaslav was going for from the beginning, because again, at the time when this was all happening, Peacemaker was doing banger numbers and exploding in ways that they were not expecting. Like it was memed to hell on social media. It had great reviews. It was a good take mocking the situation that was going on with DC at the time. And yeah, I mean, the only setback was the fact that the Suicide Squad was a day and date, and it did not perform well in theaters, but it did okay on Max. But they knew that they had something going on with this guy, and it turns out for them in their favor. Like,
well, listen, and if you remember, I said Zaslav wants Superman back, whether it's Cavill or anybody else. Remember, that was my exact wording, because that's what I was told. If it's Cavill, fine, he's happy with that. But that, I think, was the moment they were signaling something that if Gunn takes over and he decides to reboot this thing, then Cavill's going to be gone, possibly. I think that's what they were telling me in cryptic terms.
Yeah. Because
we know that these characters are important to him, but he also he said it himself, he wants a cohesive universe.
You know what? That's the one thing that, I mean, again, the fact that Marvel fell off the rails the moment they abandoned the cohesive universe with the stuff in Endgame. That was your first indicator. And the other part too is Warner Brothers started the superhero feature film craze, essentially.
Yeah.
And the one thing they've never been able to do was create a cohesive universe. And now that they saw what Marvel did in that first 10 years, they're basically looking back at their catalog saying, we've missed a huge opportunity. Our short-sightedness in thinking that we could just sell these characters individually 100% of the time, every time, didn't work. We literally left money on the floor. And so now Zaslav is saying we're not going to repeat that thing. The only problem that they have right now is, are they going to be able to bring a second wind of sorts to this genre now that the lack of effort that's been put into a number of these films over the last 6 years has not delivered?
The only thing they got going for them right now is that for about a year and a half there's not going to be anything coming out from either Marvel or DC other than like the Joker 2, Captain America 4, and the Thunderbolts whenever that finishes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only three things that we know we're going to get between now and Superman Legacy, for sure.
Yeah,
Besides the movies that are
I'm sure we'll get a Spider-Man announcement in that time frame.
That's been delayed. We already know that.
An announcement for Spider-Man, like of a new date and everything, this stuff.
Oh,
we know it's going to happen. We know that the production on it or the development on it has been delayed due to the writer's strike and some other issues. I think Tom Holland, is it? Yeah. Tom Holland just recovered from his alcoholism.
Really?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, wow.
We'll see what happens.
He's kind of young, isn't
No, it'll come. I'm just not sure it'll be here in the next 2 years.
No, it's not going to be in the next 2 years or so. I think it's going to be a big announcement to try and take some.
My guess is Christmas 25. If we see it any sooner than that, I'd be surprised.
Ooh, I think 2026.
You're probably more right.
Probably
Nick.
correct.
I'm being a little bit liberal on that, but that's saying that they already had an idea, because Tom said they had an idea. And I think he's got 2 movies left. So, and this is just me spitballing and guessing. How much you want to bet they announced that they're going to do? And you might be more right, Nick. They'll say 2026, but how much you watch? It's going to be 2 movies that are going to be shot back to back. They're going to get these done and out of the way. You watch, because by that point, Tom's going to be like,
I can see that big possibility. That way, they could do their last few movies with him as Spider-Man, because he also has been second guessing doing it.
Which is stupid because his other movies don't perform.
Yeah. No, well, and that might be part of the reason why is because
he's had a good point about why he's saying what he's saying, because he's saying, once you do 3 movies, sometimes doing the 4th movie can be a bit much, and not all franchises do so well. Obviously, Rocky 4 is an exceptional. And
well,
we
Script just said he's
more, but
yeah, he's already been in rehab for alcohol. He's 27 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's parallel this with Tobey Maguire. What happened to him by the time the 3rd film hit? He was, I believe, already had a pill problem because of his back. His back was completely out of whack. I'm waiting for the day we start hearing Tom Holland say the same kind of shit. You can only do this shit and this is another reason why I'm ready for a new Superman, because I'm sure Cavill and the rest of them are about done with this shit left and right, back and forth shit too. Cavill's not getting any younger. Yes, he's in great shape. But the same thing with Ben Affleck. I mean, these guys are going like, I'm not going to do this shit for the rest of my life.
Tobey was looking a little old in that last movie.
He was getting ragged by that 3rd movie. Yes.
Yeah.
because that was a decade of him getting the shit knocked out of him, man. That was another reason why Keaton didn't want to do a third film. Less to do with the rest of the people involved, and more to do with and Tim leaving, and more to do with just the fact that he didn't want to have to get into that goddamn suit again and deal with all that shit.
Yeah, he'd be losing like 5 pounds a day in that suit from sweat alone.
And he does not care about this character the way people think that these people do. He has said it flat out. He's like, I never watched those movies. I think he said he watched like 10 minutes of the first Batman movie and walked out in embarrassment. Wow. As soon as he saw himself in the costume. He's one of those kind of actors. He doesn't... Yeah. He does it for the money, and yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. That was him dealing with that shit. And I'm glad he came back around to it, and I'm sure this time around it was a little bit more comfortable. They had the new costumes are a lot lighter than the old ones and shit like that. And I'm sure because his whole thing was whenever anybody would call him, is the first thing he would say is make sure they put in a zipper so you can piss. Yeah. You know, that would be his
I think,
and you could turn your head. Yeah,
sorry. It was around like 15 or 16 years ago when Michael Keaton started having fun with the fact that he's Batman. Or
exactly, it took him a while to warm back up to it. Yeah,
you get old, you know. Yeah.
Well, it's not just that; it's also the Hollywood mentality and the fact that typecasting and being recognized for a single role was considered uncouth for an actor, even though it's like the best thing you could have for your career is to be recognized. Yes, you are a versatile actor, you have other roles, but the fact that you can actually hold on to, in the mind of people, one specific character performance that they laud and adore you for is a really good thing to have, because it's better than being forgotten, which is most the case for most actors.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what a lot of the Star Trek actors finally realized, right? I mean, at first, a lot of them rejected this idea of just going to cons and doing all the the same
Nimoy
parts.
And Shatner for the first.
Adam West did too. They all come around to it.
Yeah,
to that eventually. Even though obviously you understand why they don't like it at first.
And I think it has less to do with money and more to just do what they realize, like Script is saying, it's more to do with their legacy. They're like, oh shit, I shouldn't be shitting on this because this is, and because Michael Keaton realized, I'm sure he was sitting there one night and he goes, oh God, my obituary when I die is going to say Batman actor Michael Keaton died or Batman dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you better own it. Like, here's one actor that has owned it since day one, and that was Linda Carter. I have never heard or read anything of her being regretful of playing Wonder Woman. And if there is out there, please point it out to me. But I have yet to find it because she loved that role. I remember watching the history interviews of her saying, like, she walked in to do the audition, and apparently the casting directors did a double take from the comic because they're like, we didn't think a person like this would exist.
Well, didn't Nimoy say something like that once? Is like, I had to come around to the idea of Spock because I was just sitting there one day and I realized that Spock. Someday my obituary is going to read Spock dies.
Yeah, he wrote a book, I Am Not Spock, and then many years later,
yeah.
Bro, he wrote a book called I Am, which should have been titled, Oh, That Much Money? Well, of course I'm Spock.
Well, no, but I mean, I swear there was like some interview where he came to that revelation. Is that
he talked to me, but yeah.
He's like, I can't outrun this thing. Yeah.
Christopher Reeve handled it pretty well. Obviously, he had the same kind of problems with typecasting as a lot of people, but he always, in good spirits, when he would be asked about it by Johnny Carson or whomever, something like that, he would make jokes.
The only time I ever seen him disappointed with the Dracula thing was on the set of Star Wars Episode 2, the videos in the making of the movie. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I'm talking about Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, the Dracula thing. He goes, because he seems genuine when he says it. Christopher Lee's standing there and they turn Yoda around and Yoda's got Dracula teeth. And of course the whole crew starts laughing and he kind of chuckles a little bit. But then they cut to this other shot with him and George, he goes, George, I thought you're better than this. I didn't expect this of you. And you can tell he's kind of disappointed with it.
I was talking about Christopher Reeve though, but yeah.
Oh, you said Christopher Reeve. I'm sorry, I thought you said Christopher Lee. My bad.
No, but still, both of them had those problems, especially Reeve. And he was always very, pretty jovial about it. Obviously, bothered him like any other actor, but he would always handled it very well when he was on Johnny Carson or whatever.
Reeve never rejected it. In fact, if there's a gold standard for somebody who knew exactly how to embrace his character, Reeve is probably the one to go by. At no time do I ever remember him speaking negatively about the character himself. The only time he ever spoke negatively on the films is when he was talking about Part 4. And he would just say, he would never even mention it by name. He would just say,
talk around it. Yeah,
exactly. He would say, you need a certain amount of money and respect when you're making these movies. And some people have made these movies who didn't want to put the money into it and have the respect for the character. And it's hilarious because he says that. And then one of the interviews goes, the host or whatever goes, yeah, you're talking about Superman 4, right? And he goes, well, I didn't want to name it, but But yeah, and that's what his
all the
problem
way.
with that was. Yeah, it's just like you got to put the respect and time into these things. And anyway,
Yeah.
moving forward with this shit, because knowing they were resetting the DC universe under their okay, did I jump ahead too far? Yeah, I did. Okay, so then came another lightning strike in November when Zaslav announced that filmmaker James Gunn and producer Peter Safran were going to run DC Studios, overseeing all DC film and television efforts, and suddenly, and certainly not unexpectedly, they had their own plans. Knowing they were resetting the DC universe under their own vision, Gunn and Safran saw that having Cavill and Godot in the new ending was potentially promising something their plans were not going to deliver. One of the first actions the duo took was to scrap the Cavill Superman film, and they also parted ways with Jenkins, effectively killing the third Wonder Woman installment. And here's why I have that feeling script, and you said you heard something similar anyway.
Well,
and
the
that
Cavill
was
Superman film has always been Man of Steel 2, which has been in development hell since 2014. And it was the only one that was officially under the contract of Cavill that had an exit clause. So
yeah, and the closest I think that came to happening was Matthew Vaughn was overseeing it at one point, and it just kind of went away.
I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
He was very good.
I remember that was a missed opportunity.
So I'm assuming that's the version that was still on the table, but like Script said, it had just been sitting in development hell. The filmmakers, according to multiple people associated with the movie, then looked for alternatives, but wanted to keep the germ of the idea. Barry Allen thinks all is right, but then has the rug pulled out at the last moment. They also went back to an idea joked about earlier in the filmmaking process. How many Batman can we get? And I'm sure that came about when they had learned that MCU was going to do the same thing they were doing, only with 2 Spider-Men instead of just 1 Batman. And they probably got that notion, I'm assuming. The duo reached out to Clooney then. He said no or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Who cares? No, he didn't. He said yes.
He said, do I have to wear the suit? No.
Yeah, then you're fine.
I'm there.
Shoot was quickly assembled in January, and Clooney was back there as Wayne for the first time in 26 years. Also on the set was Miller, making their first, because this is when we had heard that he had been back on the set doing reshoots. Miller was in top form that day. I'm sure he was. Warner kept the new ending tucked away as much as possible. Bullshit. We all knew about it way in advance. Studio didn't even screen test it. Didn't matter. Still knew about it. It screened at the movie at CinemaCon for theater owners in press in April. Now, this is the one that I think Chris was talking about, where nothing had changed since April, at least. And I had heard earlier screenings and that nothing had changed. So I think I think you said it the other day we were talking about it, where the effects are definitely missing like the last few runs on them, like the
number of renders. Yeah, there's more rendering, more fine tuning. Oh gosh, yeah, it was
shadows and all that kind of stuff that would really help.
Yeah,
this feels like it's unfinished, exactly, and I think that's where they sat down and said, look, we're not going to finish this fucking thing, because one thing that's not stated here, and I believe now, especially considering all this other stuff is confirmed, and that was where I was reporting they were toying around with the idea of recasting the Flash, because when Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy were going to go forward, they were still going to stick with this cast. They were just going to do new movies, so they wanted to recast the Flash. And even though a lot of the papers and stuff were saying, "Oh, it's impossible and it would cost da 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 da," it's like, no, they shoot they're all shot on green screen for the most part. And in fact, there's one scene that you can really tell, and it looks like Barry is hovering over the ground in his bedroom. Because it's the 2 Barrys talking to each other. And that's where the one guy I talked to who worked in the special effects area of things said that. He's like, no. 90% of their shit was all shot on green screen because they're playing against each other. And it was all put together after the fact.
Yeah, they did compositing and then they did stand-ins, right? And all that other stuff. Yeah.
So they'd only have to shoot certain sides of it, and then the rest of it would all be green screen anyway, is what they were telling me. And they said, really, it wouldn't take as much as people think. But they were just still toying around with the idea. And yeah, it would cost some money. But at that point, they were still trying to salvage the movie. Because this movie was so expensive then, they're like, well, we got to figure out a way to make this work. Because it wasn't even so much the movie was bad. It was just that they were dealing with all these different endings and, who's going to be in it, who can't be in it, and all that kind of stuff. And then they clearly reduced Sasha's role in the film. But anyway, that's pretty much the bulk of that. But there's a little more to this, because you'll remember I said something else. I'm surprised that it took this long for him to announce it, because I actually predicted it wasn't going to take this long. But now we pretty much got the confirmation, and that is that Gal Gadot is gone too. Like, we didn't know this already, but it's pretty much.
Yeah, that Instagram thing about Wonder Woman and whatever was the day probably she learned that she's not going to be back. That's some good Photoshop they did on her face there.
It is, yeah. So who's surprised by this? Nobody, I doubt, that listens to us, but yeah.
Ooh. You know what would be really funny?
No.
Is if we could spend the time, I mean, it would take forever, but if we could find every live stream, Midnight Edge of the Morning and Midnight Edge After Dark, and line it up against this now.
At least the first time I reported it, Mikey, yeah.
Well, those first 3 or 4 times when all hell...
Each thing, because I would repeat it endlessly.
Each thing, but those 3 or 4 days after all hell rained down on you, after each one of those revelations... Because there wasn't one time that you brought up something that you didn't catch absolute hell for.
Wasn't my first reveal, though, that Christopher Reeve was going to be in the film?
Yep.
I think that was the first thing I learned.
I think so. Wait.
You're talking about almost 100 episodes ago, too. That's the other part.
I know. That's the thing. It's so long ago.
I was looking at the playlist. I think you've got a couple episodes with the same numerical value, so all the numbers might be off.
I don't put numbers on this one.
No, not this one, but definitely on live. Yeah.
On the morning show?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Andre, it's hard to say. You'd have to go back through and make sure he didn't muck up somewhere.
You know what I'm saying, Tom?
Yeah, it'd be neat. I did mention something like that to Andre, but you know the time it would take for us to go through all that?
It would take forever.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
but I mean,
Tom's been right a lot. I mean, we often are playing that clip regularly. You know.
Well, I just feel like I've kind of reached an end of a road now. You know, it's nice because my sources have kind of dried up for the most part. I hear random things here and there, but clearly Gunn is keeping a pretty tight ship. That's why I call a lot of bullshit on a lot of stuff that's out there now. It's like nobody knows nothing but James Gunn. That's what I keep being told. I've heard things about other projects that aren't so related, but yeah.
I mean, the thing is that with what's been revealed so far, you can make a pretty plausible guess as to where he's going. Like the fact that he's doing the Authority, introducing them out. I'm like, that's clearly going to be an antagonist that Superman or Batman is going to be facing because Authority are not good. I mean, they're not heroes, really.
No. And they're garbage.
They're definitely not kind at all.
They don't need to be doing the movie anyway.
And the best part is how there's a bunch of woke attributes to them, and they're not heroes. So that's a good thing. You want your villains to be woke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would pay somebody to go through it, Mega Wing Zero, but the thing is, the amount of hours you would go through that compared to the amount of money that video would make, if we gave you a percentage of the video, you probably wouldn't make very much, man.
You're talking a minimum of 4,000 hours.
Yeah, and it's a lot to go through, man. I couldn't put that on anybody's shoulders. I mean, there's probably certain things that we could probably go by the DC playlist and certain other things as far as like the time-wise, and then maybe line it up and kind of go, okay, it's got to be one of these 2 or 3 shows, because Andre would generally do a video sometimes around that. But other than that, like, we'd have to just like do random guessing. Like, or just sit there and listen to them all, or go through ActionCom does do the
time code. So if he has all the DC talk there, that would probably shorten the.
Six did say there was something about like was it Six or somebody else who said something about a search feature now on
YouTube?
On YouTube, yeah, where you can actually search through the videos or something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate. Like we have to wait for the next version of Chat GPT so that they can go through it because it's only archived till September 2021, right? So when it gets updated 2023, then be like, go tell us all the Midnight's Edge videos where Tom was right about the DC rumor,
or where I talked about it anyway. Yeah,
you probably have a full hour and a half of like clips and
well, it was just random little leaks, right? It was just little things here and there, but it all added up at the end.
Yeah, and they probably end up being an hour and 15 minutes. There should be a compilation of this. I'd watch.
Well, what I like about this what I like about this article is that it also helps me understand why things were so back and forth, right? Because You had The Rock pulling his bullshit at the same time. They overlooked that completely in this article.
Oh God, yeah.
And like I said, they were courting him for so long, and that's where I have come to this point where if him working on Superman, they were probably promising him that as a Matt Reeves project. And if they were anything like Script said, they were just hoping and praying if he signs on to be DC. They don't give a shit if that's the main Superman. They just wanted him. Because as far as they're concerned, he is one of their main people over there. And they were losing Nolan. They lost, who was the other guy they lost? I can't remember now. But they had lost a couple of their bigger guys. Clint Eastwood and a couple of the other ones are all they got left. They just brought Kevin Costner back.
Yeah, the ones that were deeply associated in legendary pictures, they lost. So Christopher Nolan had a big stake in that company.
Yeah, who else was there?
Sony. So yeah, they lost a couple of those people. And the other
Villeneuve, I think, is the only one who stuck around. Yeah,
he stuck around because... basically he was already kind of paid for doing Dune 1 and 2 ahead of schedule. Technically, I mean, it was in his contract, and as soon as the numbers came in, they're like, "Yeah, we're doing this." But no, Warner over the last 7 to 8 years, Kevin Tsuchihara and his ilk really broke the reputation of Warner Brothers as being the filmmaker's studio. And then they got even worse when Ann Sarnoff came in there and said, yeah, I'm just going to do what Tsuchihara was doing. But instead of it being, we're just trying to Band-Aid stuff, we're just going to go full feminist, strong, powerful woman's thing. And basically just kept on having Warner Brothers grind their gears. And a lot of people saw that and decided, yep, you aren't the company anymore. And with any luck, in the next 3 to 5 years, Zaslav and his new co can bring that back. Unfortunately, they're going to have a lot of stumbles because, frankly, he still hasn't got his dream team yet, and neither does James Gunn. James Gunn right now is probably the only filmmaker in that group of his writers and so forth that has a consistent quality with regards to what he makes and puts out. I'm not too psyched about Tom King being part of that. I think Christina Hodgson should be ejected immediately. I agree. Andy Muschietti, I mentioned over on Valiant's channel Sunday. He is most likely going to remain on as a producer for Batman Brave and the Bold, but I don't think he's actually going to be directing it. I think he's going to. It might have the Ryan Johnson treatment there for him.
I'm not so sure. I get what you're saying, Script, but I think that this is going to be like a makeup for him, even though he doesn't deserve it. I
don't know if they're willing to bet on him like that.
I know what you're saying, but if he does, that's going to be a bad sign for DC, because that means they're going to head right down the same road as Marvel and Star Wars, even more so.
Yeah, they're going to
revolving door of directors.
They're going to trip at the start line, essentially. That's what's
yes. So I'm hoping that there's more to this than we're seeing, because I'm willing to go with the idea. And again, this is just more speculation on my part. I have nothing to really go on with this, so don't.
And remember, Hollywood promises are broken all the time.
Oh, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying this movie had been manipulated so much, and he is one of Warner's golden boys that are left, regardless of whether or not he deserves that title or not. We know that he's made the company a couple $2 billion off those It movies, and he's got another It project in the works, and I think they have a TV series on top of it, or vice versa, or whatever. So they're gonna want to keep him happy. Gunn and him, I think, get along because they seem very similar in their.
They have similar tastes
and stuff like that. So I have a feeling that there could be a much worse things hanging around, like you just said, Tom King, Hodgson, other people in the fucking writers room and shit like that I'd be more worried about.
Oh yeah, and Matt Reeves, again, they pushed the Batman back again for its development. I don't think that's gonna happen. I have my extreme doubts.
Yeah. And Wonder Woman is getting rebooted, by the way. Here, that's what the Themyscira thing is. Sorry, you were saying about Penguin.
Penguin apparently has not completed production yet. According to the trades, they said that they stopped on the 12th, in a couple of weeks into the writer strike. So that's what's being reported right now, which means that they may have everything written. They probably finished all principal photography, but all their B-roll and post effects and all that stuff is not currently in operation at this moment. So that's interesting. And again, I think depending on how well that performs is going to dictate whether or not you will see a Batman 2. I think, and I doubt that's going to be the case. I think people are already going to check out on that.
No more sparkly bat.
Oh, I know, right? Please go away.
What a shame.
Oh God, you're gonna get people started. I've been dealing with that for the last day or so.
What's that? The sparkle bat?
Okay, this is what I said. This
shit.
movie's been delayed like 2 or 3 times now, right?
Yeah, I think the third time
Yes.
actually. Technically.
Yeah, and everybody's coming after me like, "Oh, it's only being delayed because of the writer's strike." I'm like, "Sure it is." I said, "You go ahead and believe whatever the fuck they want to tell you, because you guys were just telling me a couple weeks ago it was already written and in the can and ready to go. So which is it? Because if this thing was actually written, then they'd be ready to shoot it." And as Script and I have both stood up and said many, many times over, you can sit here and go, "Oh, it takes 3 years to make these movies." Bullshit. If Warner Brothers wanted one of these things so fucking bad so quickly, they would fast track this sumbitch tomorrow.
Exactly. They delayed it before it was. They delayed it the same week it was announced. And
then they delayed it again and again.
And then again before the writer's strike, and now again just like a couple weeks ago or less than that?
No more sparkly bat. Good.
And I've been hearing the same thing consistently, is that how the Penguin performs is going to dictate if they even do the Batman 2. And welcome to the program, Brian. How are you doing?
Good evening, sir.
One man leaves, one man enters. I just want to say thanks to Culture for showing up for a little bit. He had to run away.
Yeah, I was wondering what Bat Tom would think of a Batman.
And I'm not sure what words I'm going to eat, because I've never said that the Batman 2 is never going to happen. I've just said the chances keep growing slimmer and slimmer and slimmer.
I have said it's never going to happen, and I will stand by
I'm
that.
saying it's never going to happen.
If it's based on the Penguin, I'm not betting on it.
The Penguin could do well. We could be wrong. And in fact, we have heard 2 different conflicting stories. Now, I think that the certain papers have said that the Penguin was shut down due to the writer's strike, but then Paulie, who knows somebody very close inside the production, has said that they finished shooting.
Yep.
So that means either they can't do reshoots like they want, or it's done,
or they can't.
And they're using
B-roll,
this as an excuse.
Or they can't do B-roll, or they have a contract where this particular team is actually supposed to be involved in post-production, which means that the writing team of the show is involved in post-production, and since they're on strike, they can't be a part of that, which means that post-production could try or attempt to do the job themselves, but without that guiding voice, that is usually the writer, and I guess now more recently, because the directors got one that too, the directors, they're not going to be able to get a properly completed show. It's going to be sloppy in the sense of what we've seen with Marvel over on Disney Plus.
You're right.
So, I was going to say that someone talked about the length of time it would take to make these movies. This is part of the issue. They're spending too much money and taking too long to make them.
Wow.
When they really should be scaling back their ambitions a little and putting out better movies, but cheaper and faster.
If The Flash was a $75 million movie, it would have been released in 2015.
Exactly.
It's embarrassing.
It's happening with
that
video games too. The development time is just escalating.
The Flash in a perfect world would have not had Ezra Miller. They would have had an actual actor who was competent enough to play a very kind-hearted CSI with a good heart. And he would be facing maybe Captain Cold or the Turtle in his first movie, origin story, and it would probably make anywhere between 90 and 120 opening weekend, maybe go on to be like a 220 domestically, movie. And then you could do the second movie with like the Rogues, and the third movie, I don't know, Gorilla Grodd or Reverse Flash. They had the ground set up for a good amount of movies with the Flash, but instead they made it about Flashpoint, Batman, and everything else, and set it around the DCEU. Just what a tragedy, because the Flash has so much potential, and all of it's gone to waste.
Well, and here's the thing,
and Snyder.
I was just going to say, here's the thing. You can blame Hamada all day long. You can blame Sarnoff all day long. They all made bad decisions. The studio does need to be held accountable for their bad decisions. But at the end of the day, all I can say about that is they were trying to make money, right? They saw a problem. They were trying to fix it. This still falls a lot in Snyder's lap, and I'll tell you why.
Yes,
A, he picked the cast. Miller. B, he set this whole fucking thing down this path. C, no matter what any Snyder bro wants to tell you, Justice League proves that this thing was dead from the go.
Yeah.
Because Batman v Superman, he was given every tool in the world to make $1 billion movie, and people ran away from that movie in droves, so much so that they didn't show up to Justice League. And I don't care what anybody says, the general public doesn't give a fuck who directs what. They had no clue about what was going on with Zack Snyder or any of the fucking reshoots. They did not care. They did not show up because they didn't like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. Plain and fucking simple.
They didn't even show up enough for Batman v Superman because it was the first live action pairing of the Holy Trinity of DC, and they didn't.
That's what I meant by the tools. That's exactly what I meant by he was given the tools, regardless of the meddling. You have a movie with Batman, and exactly what Script just said. You had the tools to make $1 billion movie. You could have just literally had them running around on screen for about 2 hours, just saying, "Hey, Batman! Hey, Superman! Hey, Wonder Woman!" And it would have made $1 billion probably.
It literally waits for 2 hours and been tripped over $1 billion. That's how bad it is that he didn't even know what he was doing, and nobody wanted to see them fighting each other.
And then the second worst thing that happened was they decided to keep these characters and completely flip everything on its head. Because the only movies that made any money were Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and those were flukes. And why do I say that? Because after that, everything took a complete and fucking nosedive.
Yep.
Because if people liked, except for what?
Except for Joker.
Joker, which is unrelated to this. That's my point.
Look at the gap when BVS came out versus the 2017 Justice League. There's about, I'd say, like a year, 7-8 months. And by the time the fallout was happening of the first and second week at BVS, they had just already started shooting Justice League. So they were already screwed. They were premature with all the decisions they were making. As I said before, they weren't trying to catch up. They are sprinting towards catch up. They should have waited to see how people received it. Instead, they decided to just get a go ahead, go on and film the movie and let them in a crappy position. And they had 2 movies to have a chance to prove to audiences that, this is the DC universe that you're asking for. And it was a fool me once, shame on you. You know how the rest of that saying goes.
Yeah.
And then Justice League 2017 paid for it. It absolutely paid for it as a result of what happened because of the sins of the father. And it was all downhill from there, with obviously a few exceptions, as you mentioned, Joker, Wonder Woman,
which is an also ran. And Wonder Woman, I'll tell you this. I think Wonder Woman did so well because people liked the character. I think the same thing would have happened had you done a solo Batman movie at that point. People liked Ben Affleck as Batman. They didn't like the movies they were in necessarily, but they liked the character. I don't think as many people liked the Wonder Woman movie as people like to think they did. Same thing with Aquaman. The only reason Aquaman made me money is because of thirsty women.
Yeah, the female gaze is real.
Because after those 2 movies, nobody showed back up for anything else after that. They didn't even come back for Harley Quinn or any of that shit. Nothing after that. Even Shazam faltered. Nothing came back and made any money after those 2 hits.
Nope. It was like,
and I agree. Aquaman.
Yeah, those are the most successful films, and they're all technically under Walter Hamada. And again, he was the one that was actually kind of making money, but he's also the yes man of the studio because whatever the head wanted, whatever Sujihara wanted, whatever Sarnoff wanted, he did. That was it.
Well, and maybe it didn't make $1 billion off of women, but it did very well because of women.
Well, it crossed $1 billion, and women contributed to that significantly.
That's my point. It would have probably performed like Wonder Woman otherwise. Wonder Woman had never had a movie before, and that was a crime in and of itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like here we are in 2000 and whatever, at that time, 18 or 17 or whatever it was when it came out. It's like, how have we not had at least 2 or 3 Wonder Woman movies by now? There should have been a Wonder Woman movie between. Instead of Supergirl, we should have got Wonder Woman. I can't believe the Salkinds didn't go there, but I think that's just because they only had the Superman. I was going to say they only had the Superman rights. Yeah,
Warner Brothers had them exclusively, and nobody wanted to work on Wonder Woman because they thought it'd be too tacky to the 70s show. So they were holding it off, and it just kept on getting delayed. Joss Whedon pitched 3 Wonder Woman scripts. All of them are terrible.
I know it's not for lack of trying.
Yeah, it's not for lack of trying, but Joss Whedon was the only one with a name that was actually trying to push for it, and all of his scripts stunk. They were really bad.
Yeah, and I think Coffin Nails is right. Had Supergirl been a hit, I think Wonder Woman would have possibly been more of a.
Yeah. I appreciate what Supergirl was trying to do by having like basically Kryptonians versus magic. It's just they didn't have the resources to make that work.
It was an interesting experiment. I like a lot of things in it, and then a lot of other things in it are batshit crazy.
Well, when they basically like, we want to have the giant creature stretch Supergirl out, it's like, what are we gonna do? Well, we'll just physically actually stretch the film. It's like, no, come on.
Well, and not only that, I think like what they had conceived for that was way over the top compared to what they could shoot.
Far bigger than what they had to make.
Their aspirations were much higher than what they could do at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually said, you know what, it might just be better if we just grabbed a Stretch Armstrong doll, dress her up with Supergirl, and then just use that.
Well, isn't that like Monster at the end, like invisible, just because they couldn't afford a fucking monster at that point?
That's the mid-act. The monster in the mid-act.
The mid-act, yeah.
They couldn't. They wanted it to start out invisible, then have it materialize, and then they realized they couldn't afford to do that, so they paid for the lightning animation to form the monster every once in a while. But that was like one of the better scenes of the movie. Because that required ingenuity. But then at the end, the ending is when it went all the hell
off the rails.
Yeah.
But anyhow, this is an article that Six just sent me here. The Warner Brothers Discovery CEO could have easily distanced himself from Ezra Miller's DC superhero temple. I think this is important because this is finally the media calling out Ezra Miller.
Well, we also have a big
in a negative way.
We have a big conflict here because a lot of people are wanting to put the label that Warner Brothers is protecting Ezra. Well, technically, no. Technically, Ezra's people, like his publicist and his family, are begging Warner Brothers to not get rid of him. And Warner Brothers has his deal saying, well, you keep him out of jail or you keep him out of crime for a while. We'll just let this go through. Warner's isn't really spending much of anything to try and protect Ezra. It's really...
Well, they have no obligation to
draining Ezra's account financials with his publicist to try and keep him where he is.
Yeah, and they have no obligation to him anymore either after this. Exactly. This is it. This is what I've been telling people.
Yeah,
I don't even understand where people are like, oh, they're keeping him, but they're getting rid of Cavill. They have never once said that he's sticking around. The whole idea of this, we'll see where we're at when we get there. You know, when do you think we're going to get another Flash movie? Never.
Probably 2030.
Yeah, not with Ezra Miller.
Definitely Ezra Miller.
Sure.
It'll be in reboot.
Man, it bums me. They're like, as funny as it is to laugh at this movie, it also bums me out because once again, I've got over 100 Flash comics. I love the villains. Yeah. I love Central City. There's a great supporting cast. There's so much history and lore they can work with. They, like I said, they could do 3 to 4 movies, and it all got dialed down to Flashpoint, Supergirl, Michael Keaton, and Ezra Miller.
Yeah. Here's another laugh. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's just like, and yes, Flash is absolutely popular enough for his own movie. He has definitely, it's not about what characters you like, because some people don't like the Flash. That's fine. There's a lot of people who don't like Aquaman. There's a lot of people, a lot of people who don't like Ant-Man. There's also, no one knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were until there's a movie, unless you were a big comic fan. There's a problem when the Eternals has a bigger opening than the Flash.
I love the Flash.
It should be that, once again, and as a big Flash fan, to me, a realistic number probably been around 90 to 120.
Well, but
Eternals should not be at
proving,
70.
It didn't happen, further proving the Flash is the dumbest DC Justice League character ever.
Mikey, you stop.
Oh my!
Love the Flash.
That's fine. No, it's fine if Mike does like.
Let's go by the numbers.
My Speed Force is the dumbest thing about the Flash.
Yes, the Speed Force. I loved the Wesley. John Wesley Shipp show. I didn't miss a single fucking episode of that show when I was a kid. I loved that show. To me, that was like getting a movie every week, right? It was amazing, and that's why the show got canceled, because it was too goddamn expensive. But speaking of the Flash, we got one more story to go over here, real super quick. It's more or less the headline.
Go ahead. Real quick. No, I'm saying, script. I don't know if you saw this, but you mentioned the Speed Force, which I also hate. The guy who created the Speed Force and wrote a lot of Flash. Did you see what happened to him? Mr. Mark Waid got left out of the acknowledgments, and he was not happy. Did. That was hilarious.
He did. Listen, in my opinion, he did a lot of damage to the Flash.
Oh, he was a jerk. But that's pretty
he also
funny.
Did more Wally West stories than Barry Allen stories, if I'm not mistaken, right?
But he did a lot. Yeah,
he
but
did
he did a lot of
Wally
other
West.
Oh,
yes,
look, he trashed Barry, which I hate him for. But he also did write some Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I know is if you're going to say that the Speed Force is okay and there's not a problem with that, then I don't want to hear you bitch about Superman going back in time in the Superman the movie again.
Yeah. By the way, what a great idea to have Zod as a villain in the Flash movie.
You're kidding where I'm going with this headline here now. This is a laugh here. The Flash actor Michael Shannon's on his way on why he turned down Star Wars role. I don't ever want to get stuck in a franchise. What the fuck do you think this is? Zod has been resurrected so many fucking times now.
He still has a few more deaths to go to get to Professor X, but he's catching up.
What were you saying, Script?
I mean, it's just ironic. He just doesn't want to have continuous work or steady work. I mean, that's what a franchise does.
Idiot.
But
I'm surprised he's even in these kind of movies because he is not this kind of actor.
No, God, no. He's a character actor for a supporting role. He shouldn't really be a main antagonist or anything. He's a goon. He's good at goons.
Right. Yeah.
He's good as the annoying district attorney that gets shot in the mid-act turning point.
You've cast him already, Script. I can tell in your head.
Well, some of his best stuff is his earlier shit, right? Like, I mean, he could just chew the scenery. This guy's great and that kind of stuff. I mean, as Zod, he did fine, but he's not a patch on Terrence Howard, and that's the thing is you can tell he's just going through the motions. And he even said, "I don't even know why I'm here." Or did I say Terrence Howard? Jeers, Christ.
Terrence Stamp.
Terrence Howard was.
Oh, dear boy, how could you get that wrong, dear boy?
Because any other time I can't remember Terrence Howard's name.
Terrence Stamp's one of the greatest actors of his generation.
Plus, Empire's right in front of my face. It was probably subconsciously. But yeah, he goes, I'm always a bit wary about these giant movies because they take a lot of time and I don't find them very stimulating to work on. I don't ever want to get stuck in a franchise. And he even said in this Flash movie, he didn't even understand why he was here.
That makes two of us.
That makes everybody.
Money.
Well, I think he means like character-wise and story-wise, but like, yeah.
It's just why? What do we look? Yeah. Let's just dredge up Zod. We don't have to worry about an actual Flash villain or anything like something that rhymes with Zod.
Well, they're trying to make Zod like the new Joker or fucking Lex Luthor. It's like, come up with a new bad guy already. Come on.
How about they just give us one of the Superman villains that they haven't given us yet?
How about a Flash villain?
Why is that so hard?
How about
Flash villain in the Flash movie? For Flash villain, they could go with Captain Cold. Straight
Grodd.
Up.
I mean, there's so many.
Grodd would have been great.
I would love to
see Grodd. Yeah.
Grodd would be fantastic.
Also, I'm tired of Reverse Flash a little bit. So I'm kind of tired of Reverse Flash as well.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Else,
But see, you could save him for like a third movie. That way you can build up interest in the character.
Nick,
the other part too is you also have to differentiate between the Reverse Flash and Professor Zoom, because I was introduced to Professor Zoom first.
Professor Zoom was first.
Wait a minute. Does the Reverse Flash run backwards?
No.
Yes.
He does in this movie.
No. His title is actually the dumbest out of all the.
He's the Reverse Flash. Let's make him run backwards.
He's slow as treacle.
Well, and that goes into why this third act shouldn't even have had Michael Shannon. Let's be real. It should have just been him, finding out that Eobard Thawne and who he is and fighting him, and that should have been the third act.
Eobard Thawne, yeah.
Solve the murder of your mom, you idiot.
Exactly. Solve the murder of your mom, you idiot.
I'm going to hold a bit of a grudge over what they did.
How cool would it be to see two speedsters fighting? But no,
Yeah. What were you
the
saying,
way they
CC?
handled Keaton's Batman, I'm going to hold a bit of a grudge over it. I'm a bigger Star Wars fan, and so I feel more emotion over what they did to Luke Skywalker. But the way they ended Keaton's Batman in this movie, I was angry when I saw it.
Go ahead, CC. I'm sorry.
I understand.
But that's
no.
what
I mean,
they want to see
can
Batman
say,
go out with a bang or die in battle or something. That's what the fans
there was
want.
nothing heroic about it at all. And I'm a big fan of Keaton Batman. I mean, certainly that was where I started with Batman, and then the animated series. It felt a little bit Luke Skywalker to me, the way, there was nothing heroic about that. And yeah, multiverse, there's 100 other Keaton Batmans, whatever. That was Keaton Batman. That's the way he went out. It pissed me
Some
off.
of that didn't even really bother me so much, CC. It was just more of, and this is what I said earlier on Mr. H's stream. I don't know if you were listening or not, but I said, it felt like, and I know you'll really get this reference, it feels like when an old band or singer decides they're going to do basically all their old hits, but they're going to re-record them.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
and it sounds pathetic.
Yeah.
That's what this felt like. It's like, dude, because that's all he was doing was saying his greatest hits. How much do you weigh? I'm Batman.
The only new one
Let's get nuts.
You want some
It's
help?
so bad.
Yeah.
The only one that landed was I'm Batman. That was fine. The rest were terrible.
That's why I wouldn't
I'm
mind
Batman.
seeing him as Batman Beyond, not Supergirl
Right,
or whatever,
yeah.
but I mean actual Batman Beyond.
It would work. but-
He's got it for that role.
Guys, just imagine how much worse Batgirl was.
Well, and that was my
I don't
other
know.
thing too. Is everybody going on? Well, we said that earlier too. Is the Batman Beyond thing that was Batgirl, and we heard it was horrible, horrible,
I bet he was
unreleasable,
probably more
horrible.
coherent than the Flash, though.
Maybe, but just from what I was hearing is like hokey and very like look at those costumes.
Oh God. Well, I mean, they borrowed the Flash Batman costume for their movie, clearly.
Well, I'm
And
a little
their
afraid to show
Batmobile, most
these. But
likely, but the other stuff, the Batgirl's initial costume, like the only thing they got right for her was the cowl, because the cowl looked good on her. It was form fitting. It had the silhouette needed, but then they released what's her name? Released on Instagram the pink or the purpley
yeah,
one with the foam core pads. Like, geez,
let me see if I
that's
can
not
find
good.
that. I might have it here, but no, like somebody did release. I think this is what you're talking about. Script.
Yeah.
Somebody did release some new photos, and then everybody's pretty sure it's the
Party
directors.
City.
Pretty sure it's the directors. Exactly, but they're getting pulled down, so I'm not going to try and show them too much. But they did post this too. This was to try and get us all like amped up. It's like, oh, it looks like he's in the old bell tower. Oh,
Oh,
fuck
God.
you and your member Barry bullshit. You did member Barry Allen all over my face.
Bell End Tower, perhaps.
That was good.
Truth Hope Love says, anyone think it's disturbing that full grown and are overpraising the little kids show Bluey? They're trying to say it's better than Saul and Breaking Bad.
I mean, for full-grown adults.
Louis?
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying. I think I know I have not seen this show, but I do know it's one of those shows that's taking people by craze, storm, whatever you want to call it. It's a kids show from. It's distributed by Disney. I believe it's made by is it BBC Script or somebody else?
BBC.
Australian.
Or
BBC
Australian?
Australia
Is it BBC?
government.
BBC Australia, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something about it, but parents, when you become a parent, your brain changes, and shit you wouldn't normally watch, you start finding deeper meaning in like Mickey Mouse's Funhouse.
Yeah.
How about Barney?
And Barney, or Pet Patrol, or even
You've been deep into Mickey's Funhouse, Tom. Is that what you're
gosh.
I've watched Bluey many times, and I'll say it: the show fucking rules. And
ABC
if
Australia.
I've not seen
Yep,
Better
never
Call
heard of
Saul,
it.
Breaking Bad. I hear they're great. I will say though, my girlfriend's a big fan of both those shows and Bluey, so I don't think there's anything disturbing about it at all. It's just people are liking what they like, and some people like both. Some are gonna like their adult shows, some are gonna like their kids' cartoons. I like them both, and as far as the cartoon goes, Bluey's fantastic because it's got the perfect amount of jokes that the parents will understand, and good wholesomeness that embraces family values, which is something that's absolutely lost and then some in today's entertainment. If you look into the numbers, it seems to be the only show people actually watch on Disney Plus, and that's for good reason because families love watching it, and it's got likable characters, and they actually have a good lovable dad in it too, which is that's like a unicorn sighting nowadays, is having a lovable dad. The dad in the show's funny, so yeah.
Well, you would know. You got little ones. No, it's fine. Mikey, are you back yet?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, like, have you had this experience with Max growing up? Like, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm sitting here watching this. And then all of a sudden, you start finding a little deeper meaning in, something that he's watching on TV, like Blue's Clues or something like that. Or was he always somebody who's just more into shit that dad was into anyway?
No, he's way more into shit that dad's into. Like he's at a whole, and he's kind of always been that way. You know, that I think I was recently trying to figure out why he's so into War of the Worlds, and I think what's happening with him now is as he's getting like 7, 8, 9, and 10. I think he's having flashbacks to the stuff that he was a baby and watching with me. Because I had this convo with Script. I've always treated him like he's an adult. And so, like, I just asked him what's his favorite War of the Worlds, like which iteration, TV or the movie. He's like the one I read, the original book. I was like, wait, what? You know? So I'm probably the wrong person to ask with some of the stuff because my kid is just like.
I kind of figured that, but yeah. Oh, Max and Ruby was one my kid would watch all the fucking time. Now, most of that stuff, I could not find anything in it. Once in a while, there was a few things my kid watched that I just kind of found myself going, okay, this is not so bad, or I can see there's a little bit more here. Yeah, I can see they threw that in there for the adults, but like even Andre's talked about that, like Paw Patrol and some of those shows. He's like, you got to find something in them or you're going to go nuts.
Well, was Jimmy Neutron around for your kid, or was that a little bit before?
I think that was a little bit before his time. I think he had the movie, but he never really watched it. I'm trying to think, because my kid's main things, he was really into like PBS Kids. He wasn't so much into Nickelodeon. He would watch SpongeBob once in a while.
SpongeBob is great for adults. My God.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, I was never a big fan of it, but he watched it more often than not. Luckily, my kid was more into stuff like Looney Tunes, The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead.
I was lucky with that.
Stuff too, like that. I mean, when he got older, obviously a bit.
Rocco's Modern Life is one of my very.
He liked Hanna-Barbera cartoons, so a lot of this stuff he liked is kind of like with Mikey, like to where I could stomach most of the things because it was stuff I liked as a kid too. So
yeah.
But I mean, he liked like the 2000 iteration of the Ninja Turtles, which is kind of where I watched some of that finally because I was kind of like, oh, there's no way this is going to be whatever. And then I kind of caught a couple episodes of it because he really liked it. And I saw what it was and I'm like, oh, well. And then I went back and watched it from the beginning because I think I caught it on episode 4 or 5 or something like that. But yeah. Anyway, as far as being better than Saul and Breaking Bad, I don't know about that, but that's just them trying to cope with watching Bluey.
I was wondering how it was comparable.
Yeah. That's just how you cope with it. Truth Hope Love says, how would you guys feel about a Roger Rabbit 2?
It almost happened.
Not now. Yeah, it's almost happened a few times actually.
Gary Wolf talked about it a lot, and there was a shot of it. Was it for a good while there was scripts and all that other kind of stuff, and it just
there's a couple different scripts. But the most prominent one was a World War II prequel.
Right.
And in fact, I do have an interview with Gary Wolf where he does talk about the recent prequel of Jessica Rabbit that he wrote. So you never know, we might get something out of that someday. But
you could cast Ezra Miller. You could cast Ezra Miller as Jessica.
No.
That's what they would do. Trust me.
Wouldn't you get like Christina Hendricks or somebody like that?
Oh, that would be.
He wrote a book sequel. After
Oh yeah, I've got all like 4 or 5 of his books. He's actually written a few.
Who plugged Roger Rabbit? The Who frame? Yep.
And Toontown, something or other, and then. Anyway, we're working on that. I got Pablo editing that in the background, so eventually it'll come out. The interview will, but no, like there was one that was during World War II, and it was about where Roger and Jessica met, and at the end of the movie, you find out who Roger's dad is, and it basically you zoom out and it's Bugs Bunny and he's drawing things, and he's like, "Hey, nice stinker." Yeah. So his dad was Bugs Bunny.
Yep, he was something. Gary Wolf's a cool dude. He posts a lot on Facebook.
But I think he and a few other people weren't a big fan of the war story part of it and having tunes at war, because that was a big part of it. And it was also Disney trying to deal with not being able to get the Warner's characters again and shit like that.
Probably we're so much better off. I don't think we need any. Certainly no.
No, they got Bugs Bunny, and that's about it.
Yeah, we don't need anything ever done again with it. Leave it alone forever.
I think Space Jam 2 proved that this is like a one and done thing, and Space Jam was even an anomaly of sorts.
Yeah, it had its moment, but it was not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And Roger Rabbit stands up not just because of the gimmick of the time, because that's the thing is you can do that now on your home computer. The reason Roger Rabbit stands up is it's a solid story.
It's a beautiful story.
It's a solid mystery, and the world is well realized. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I'm just with you. It's one of my favorite all-time movies, and at that time, 1988, that was a big deal, man. We were blown away by it. blown away, man.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, man. And it's like I said, the world's well realized. The rules are set, and they seem to abide by them pretty well.
Yes.
And considering how different it is from the novel, it's another one of those. And don't
Very
tell
different
Gary.
from the novel.
Don't tell Gary I said this. The movie's better than the novel.
The novel's really different because it's not cartoons.
It's way different.
It's comic strips.
And it takes place in the 80s, so there's lots of differences. I mean, I like some things in the novel, like the idea that the comic strips, because they even attempted to try it, and I've asked them that, like, wouldn't you like to see a version now where they actually do it more, like, closer to the novel, where, you know, because like you said, when the characters would talk, they would actually have speech balloons.
Yeah, they would pop over their head. Yeah.
Yep. And they tried to do that with the original one, I guess he said, and it just wasn't working in the process of trying to. It was just too much work.
It took him like 20 or 30 or something crazy, like how many tries it took him just to get the book sold. He was pretty sure he never would, and it was a crazy process that he never gave up, but it took forever to get that book, just the book sold.
But yeah, no, I talked to him quite a bit about stuff, and
cool.
Hopefully you guys get to hear that.
I'd like to hear that
pretty soon. We got Waltman here who says, just sent you a clip of 2 Koreans reacting over the Oscar diversity rule, same channel that did the Little Mermaid clip. Okay. We watched that one last night, so I think this one should be okay. And yeah, I think this Oscar diversity rule is going to go away pretty quickly. I predicted that. Or they're just going to ignore it.
Wait a minute. Me and Chato are going to get in on that sweet diversity action.
You're already a white supremacist.
We're with our new company called Hey Brownie Studios is our new concept.
Hey Brownie.
Yeah. Like we'll certify
how about
that
frosted brownie.
Like for the right beat, we'll certify that script as an official brownie guy. I'm gonna have to change his avatar, but I got a crayon.
Too bad it's the wrong color, right?
That crayon's gonna cost script about $50,000, but that's
Oh Lord. All right, let's see what this is about here.
미국 헐리우드에서 인종적 다양성을 추구하기 위해서 최근에 이런 가이드라인까지 만들었는데요. 앞으로 영화에 백인을 제외한 소수 민족이 한 명이라도 중요한 역할을 맡지 못하면 이제 아카데믹 시상식 오스카의 후보로 오르지 못한다고 해요. 뭐 이런 다양성 추구하는 방식에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시나요?
그 의도 자체도 공감을 하지만 어느 정도는 약간 역차별이라고 생각을 합니다. 또 이번 사태와 같이 정말 배역에 어울리지 않게 억지로 그 배우를 좀 흑인 배우들을 끼워 맞추는 상황도 발생하기 때문에 퀄리티가 높은 영화가 만들어질 수는 없다고 생각합니다.
뭐 소수 인종의 그런 캐스팅을 하지 않는다고 해서 그게 인종차별이라고 절대 볼 수 없다고 생각을 하거든요. 주제를 또 바꾼다면은 소수 인종이나 유색 인종들이 충분히 주요 역할을 맡을 수 있다고 생각을 해요. 그거는 이제 영화의 내용의 문제 같고 그거는 살짝 억지인 것 같아요.
That's it. They're cancelled.
Oh, I mean, she said reverse discrimination, which I don't know. It's all discrimination. You can't go backwards on it.
It's so weird how we went from we do not discriminate because of age, race, gender,
sexuality,
all that stuff, and now we're that's a standard.
Now we embrace it so much that we get to exclude people. See how that works?
I think that video is full of white supremacists.
Well, according to Harvard, they are.
You would know.
There was certainly a ginger supremacist in that one.
And Mike, you would know because he just became a white supremacist recently. So
he did. He's got the card.
Yep. Freezerman71 says merge DC and Marvel Batman versus Superman. DC is DOA. Well, here's the thing: the more these franchises go down this tube, the more chances of a DC versus Marvel or any of the characters crossing over actually goes up.
Well, here's the other part too.
As a last-ditch effort.
Between Marvel and DC right now, DC is the only studio that has potential.
Yes, because Marvel is not going to unless they finally decide to reboot. They won't.
They're not rebooting. The rumors of the casting for some of the films coming up with Fantastic Four and whatnot are not generating the types of vibes that they want to have with their audience. We're going to find out tomorrow with their Secret Invasion or Secret Invasion. If that's going to actually track or trend on social media. Again, just because this is going to be a bad year for Warner Brothers with regards to their DC films, they knew that Like you cannot scare them. You cannot do anything. You can definitely monetize videos saying that they're done and a failure. You're going to be profitable from that, but you'll be eating crow the next year because they're going to come out with all their new stuff. And if it's good, you're all going to be happy. We all should be happy. And if it's bad, well, you just go back to the same thing. But right now, between those two points of time, DC has the big advantage over Marvel because it has the potential to be good. Marvel doesn't have that right now. Marvel
has more potential to pull it down than anything.
Exactly.
I don't understand why a great Fantastic Four movie is so hard to pull off, having read all those comics for years.
Well, one part is that they're not really superheroes. They're a family, but they're not really superheroes. Like that. Like when you take a look,
you
at the
need to
pantheon
do
of
it
what they
in
are.
like Incredibles tone, right? Like,
yeah, Incredibles got it the closest that you'll ever get.
Yeah,
and the fact of the matter is like, again, all the characters in the Fantastic Four are really horrible people. Like they are, but they don't get along too well, but they do the right thing when push comes to shove. But I don't like Reed Richards. He may be the smartest man ever, but he's very cruel, cold. He doesn't actually, he tells himself that he cares about other people, but he really doesn't. Sue Storm is trying to keep everything together. Then Johnny Storm is probably mentally handicapped. He's lucky he's good looking, but he is the dumbest superhero to grace the.
So you're saying they got him right in that new Fantastic Four movie last time?
Probably, yeah.
Johnny.
And then Ben Grimm, the Thing, he's a very insecure guy, but he's the one who actually has a heart of gold, and he's dealt the wrong hand. But even then, he's so quick to anger that he's easily triggered by Johnny and Reed whenever they want to do something. The only one who never that I know about is like
well,
right?
I just came back from I had to run, and I thought I would come back to an alternate dimension where the script is describing the Fantastic Four as backwards as he possibly could.
I know.
I thought that was like some kind of exercise, like he was trying to.
You're triggered.
The cast name more correctly, right? Because
I'm a little shocked. Yeah, but you know,
clobbering times.
The FF are a wonderful family. I mean, they're dysfunctional.
They're incredibly dysfunctional, but I mean, it works. It works
like
for them, and that's the angle you kind of have to go for them. The problem that they've been making with all their iterations is they're trying to make them superheroes first instead of the dysfunctional family first.
Yeah, well, Reed did get together with them when they first got their powers and said, "We're going to use our powers for good."
Yes, and he's the only one that really kind of named himself out of the Fantastic Four, which I thought was funny because that's like
Mr. Fantastic.
Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, he's got the ego now, Reed.
Well, that's what he called his dick before that. So
yeah. Right. I mean, and then you have like you have the moments where like he goes back in time and meets his dad and sees his brother, and then how he ignores his kid Franklin a lot.
He ignores Sue a lot. He does a lot of stuff, but then again, that's the writers.
I mean that is also about how he's. Yeah, that's how the writers treated him in like the 70s and 80s a lot.
I've only read the 60s comics so far, but give me the Fantastic Four where Namor is Ed Wood and he's casting Sue Storm and he's wooing her on the film set and putting her into scenes. I think go a long way with that story.
Wow.
Let's ask ChatGPT, why can't they get the Fantastic Four movies and write in movies? Fantastic Four has had somewhat mixed track record in terms of film adaptations. Bullshit. They're all bad. Poor execution. Some of the previous Fantastic Four films have suffered from poor execution, studio interference, lack of strong adaptation, audience expectations, timing, and marketing saturation. ChatGPT, those are not good reasons.
That's why I asked Script Doctor.
I think you have to make it a dysfunctional family film with a passive superhero story as a result. And it's a tricky thing to do because, again, one of the aspects of the Fantastic Four is it's more about their relationship than it is about stopping Doctor Doom or stopping the Mole Man or Galactus or going into the negative zone or anything of that nature. It's always it's soap opera, and that's the angle that you have to go for, but the studios don't want to do it that way. That's just the sad part. And when you can't do it that way, when you can't be true to the conflict and relationships of those characters in that medium, you're never going to get a fan favorite Fantastic Four film.
Tom?
No. I personally, I've always seen Johnny as a hero. I mean, I could kind of see where it comes from on Reed, but I see Johnny as a hero. is a hothead, obviously, and
he screwed up a lot. Like he's never learned.
Johnny, don't be a hero.
He's practically he's a what? Late teenager, early 20s. A lot.
I think he's a high school dropout. I mean, with the concept of what's going, like literally, he falls for reverse psychology every single issue that is brought up.
Beauty school dropout.
Right on that, he does. That's fine. He's gullible.
Dearest sends us in a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done it already. Thank you, Dearest. Sorry, you were saying you were going to say something, Nick.
No.
Sorry, just before we move on, what do the panel think of the 1994 low budget Fantastic Four movie?
No budget, right?
Yes.
Roger
Corman.
Corman non-movie.
Yeah.
Because it was meant to be not a movie. Yeah. Well, you don't want to get me started on it. I mean, people love it because of how crappy.
That is the best version so far.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Everybody the best version so far. Well, you can't excuse that movie. It wasn't even supposed to be a movie. It's very bad, but it had no budget, so you can't really hold it to blame either. And they really have.
For what we have to go off of, though, Klobby, I'd still say it's the most accurate of the adaptations. Yeah,
it's got a lot of really idiotic stuff in there.
There's some idiotic shit in it, but it's still pretty much the closest to the original comic.
The stuff that the script was just saying, I don't have to process it. I don't have to actually talk to him about a lot of that because we don't agree on any of it. But
that's okay.
That's fine. But this is easy. That movie, by the Roger Corman movie, it is. I know people like to say it's it is the least. See, everyone says it's the best one, which is hilarious. Before Van Forstick came out, people weren't saying it as much, but it's still terrible.
I've never liked the Tim Story ones.
I don't like them either. They got a lot of things wrong with them and a few things okay in them, but the Roger Corman one has some really idiotic stuff in it. But it's not.
Oh, it does, but so does the comic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bunch of I mean, it's not really a movie. It was just a copyright save. So
it was, but the story is there, like the basic.
They turned the mole man into the jeweler, Doctor.
But that's because they didn't have the rights, I don't think.
Yeah, it was a rights issue there.
Well, in the Doctor Doom, they never got to finish doing this.
They could have used Mole Man.
Still,
I don't know on that part.
Great as a bootleg movie. As a
I'd have to check.
They could use Doctor Doom. They could use Mole Man.
Like a whole movie.
The original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie was an adaptation of a single comic issue. And when I read that, it struck me how all you need to do is take one comic, one great story from any of these hundreds of issues and run with it. It's not that complicated.
I don't think it borrowed from just one comic, but the Tim Story movies have all kind of problems wrong with them.
I think it was a few. I definitely think it was a few.
Well, certainly the original, like before Spider-Man 1, the original issue. I mean, almost frame for frame. I know they took more than that, but frame for frame, that original introduction of Spider-Man was brought into that movie.
Fantasy.
Yeah, that one.
About?
That's what I'm talking about.
Bits of a lot of things.
Well, and it helped mostly that Raimi was only really familiar with the original version of Spider-Man. Anyway, he wasn't familiar with any of the later stuff.
Yeah.
So he only read the '60s comics.
Yeah. That's one thing I would ask Script one day. I would ask him, what is it with these every single superhero movie is? Do they sit down with like a couple of geeks chained up in a dungeon somewhere and ask them about, because these guys don't know anything about comics. So they ask these guys, they'll tell them the character and they'll ask about all their favorite stories, and they'll go into a room and use like 50,000 different things from 50,000 different stories and hodgepodge them into one mess of a story, so that when geeks watch them, they go, oh, that was from this. Well, this was from that. And that was from this. But none of them are for they're never an adaptation of, even when they use the titles like Winter Soldier or Age of Ultron, they're never an adaptation of anything.
No, they're basically trying to, again, when it comes to the adaptations, the ideal point is just to try and get the essence of what the core is of the story or the characters and do something different and new. In one angle, it's basically to try and surprise the hardcore fans with this interpretation,
right?
So that they don't get spoiled. In another part, it's also because there's always complications with regards to who owns the original story, and are you buying the rights to license that out as an adaptation, or are you buying just the title, or do you own the trademark and you have the title but you don't technically have the rights, so you just want to mark it on the title, and if you do it similar enough to be recognizable to the audience, but different enough that you don't have to pay anyone. That's kind of the goal. And it's really a complicated mess. It all depends on what the contract is on the terms of the IP that's being adapted.
Well, absolutely. But my larger question to you is always like, where, in other words, when I see this stuff in a movie, like when I go see for the first time one of these movies and I see all the different bits and pieces from various things from comics that I've read over the years, and you may do this too, I don't know. My saying is, where'd they get that? None of these idiots who wrote this movie never read any of these comics or know any of this stuff. So they're mining it from somewhere. I've always wondered what they're doing, where they're sucking that information from.
It's usually on their own accord. Like when I was able to do some contracting with Warner Brothers, I got access to all their digital DC comics, and I asked if I could copy them and take them home to study for potential pitching and script adaptations. They said yes.
Right.
So I've got from the beginning of Detective Comics and Action Comics up until 2009, I think, is what I have. Everything. Almost everything that they ever written, like the stuff that they rescanned digitally for their own like digital archives, which many of them are poorly done, and I think they had to rescan them. I think they rescanned them recently in between then, but I got terrible versions of those, terrible scans of those. And yeah, you just read them as you can. And the other part too is sometimes there'll be a producer who has a little bit more familiarity with the IP, not a lot, but a little bit more, and say, listen, this is the story we want to go for. Search it up in the comic book archive that we got and get yourself familiar with the material. And we'll start taking pitch meetings of your take on that and see what happens there. And so basically you do the research. Marvel Studios for a while, they didn't do the digital stuff. They actually just pulled from their physical archives, like reprints of the comics, and would give them to actors and writers and stuff to read. So that was, I mean, I prefer that a little bit more because it's nice. I like holding comics too. But
I was curious.
That's kind of what it is.
I always do wonder that. And I don't know about you, but when I'm watching that, well, you're in on it, so you know that stuff. I'm always wondering, going, there's no way these geeks, these 25-year-old geeks who are people who write these scripts are geeks enough to know any of this stuff.
Well, in some cases, they either were lucky enough to grow up with it, which are few and far between, or they're doing the traditional cramming for the exam type of mode.
Gotcha. Just curious.
And the other part too is like I got the benefit of a little bit of both, but even when I go into the cramming mode, I end up taking my time and not rushing it, and then falling in love with what I'm reading or what I'm doing at the time. And then I'm just coming up with inventive ways of like, well, how can I incorporate this reference to give a nod to anyone that this story happened in this character's past, and it's really just an Easter egg thing. And how do I make it subtle and quick enough to, one, it's cheap to do, and two, it builds a little confidence in the diehard fans that I'm targeting that I know what I'm talking about and when it comes to this story. It's a very, very tricky thing.
I got you. I've been curious about the process there. So.
Yeah.
I grew up with the 90s stories, obviously. But I'm guilty of needing to do things chronologically, right? So when I look back and I wanted to catch up on everything I've missed, I started with the 60s, and I realized there's tens of thousands of comics to catch up on, the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. It'll take years. It'll take a decade. And so I grew to appreciate why some people have wanted to reboot storylines, and I don't necessarily agree with it. It complicates things when you get multiverses, but I kind of understand it when you have so much material to work through, because it would, I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of stories, of comics issues to get through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s.
Very quietly.
Very quiet time. Well, CC, there's a anime that's been going on for a very, 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 very long time. One Piece. And it's got
that's another thing. I'm trying to work my way through 1,000 episodes of that show.
Really?
And yeah,
I might as well start with episode 1 because that's how I do things, right?
Yeah. People know where to start with episode 500. They hop on board. Marvel and DC shot themselves in the foot with the constant renumbering. It sounds good in theory when they're doing the reboot, renumber, but the thing is, they assume that when the current volume ends, and this could be applied to movies, they assume that everyone who is invested, they're assuming that audience is going to jump, straight into the next volume, next reboot. But for a lot of people, that ends up just being a jumping off point. That's all it ends up being, is a jumping off point for people. That's where it starts and stops. And for you know it, you're just back where you left off when you had your last volume ended. So nothing is really gained, and nothing is really lost. It's just you're at the same spot. It's basically just a 360.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah, you're still
Yeah.
a little quiet,
better.
but we can hear
I'm
you.
quiet.
I wonder.
Yep, I can hear you.
Unfortunately, we can still hear you.
I know. All I was gonna say is I'm sure a lot of these guys just read the omnibuses and shit like that. They don't actually.
Barely hear you.
Yeah, it sounded like you were walking away from your mic as you were speaking just then.
Take the bucket off your head, Tom. No,
Now can you hear me?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's much better.
Way better.
All right.
Very sexy.
What I was saying is a lot of these guys probably just read the omnibuses and shit anyway. They don't actually probably read the
You're
comics.
getting too much credit with the
they
omnibus.
They have access to everything, so they can read whatever they
everything's
want.
They
online
can.
now.
That's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
point. Is they're just reading the cliff
They can't
notes.
read.
Probably,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, finding somebody who's read everything would be a task. They're
There's
out
only
there.
one guy we know that. Only one
Oh
guy's
man,
done
it
that.
takes a long time. I mean, I use the Marvel comic book reading order site because it's a really good chronology, and it, as far as I can tell, it's got pretty much everything for all your
Yeah.
major characters, and I use that as my basis when I was catching up with She-Hulk because I have all the original issues of the digital issues of the one from 79 to 83, if I'm remembering correctly. And then it's basically her Fantastic Four appearances and a bunch of other little specials and whatnot, individual books. Then it goes to the Sensational She-Hulk, and I stopped that at like 90s. It was 50 issue run, so that's ended in 96, and that's where I stopped because it's like after that, the character just kind of was a guest in other issues and didn't really have their own story until Dan Slott got a hold of her, and I'm not a Dan Slott fan, so
Yeah, me, who is?
yeah.
Except for Dan Slott.
It's a fantastic website, the one you're talking about. The
Yeah,
reading
I wish there was
order.
a DC version.
Which one are you
of that,
talking
too.
about?
The Marvel reading order. There's a website
Marvel
that lists out everything, and you can search by character and which issues they've appeared in. Makes
Yeah.
it a lot easier to
called the
try and
Marvel
figure
reading
out what you
order?
want to focus on.
I
right?
found
I know
and read
that one.
issues of Comet Man to get She-Hulk appearances
yeah.
to see if there's anything of importance
in
in
that.
there. Yeah,
Didn't she?
that was with by Miguel Ferreira and
Miguel
Billy,
Ferreira and Billy
Mumy,
Mumy.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that comic.
yeah. It was a short one, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, we got some more member chats and super chats here. Shoom has been a member for 22 months. Says you won't. You know what would be funny, Mexican Iron Man?
What?
Hearing more about your weekend. Why is that?
Oh my God, my mic doesn't work anymore.
What'd you do?
I
What
went on a
didn't you
date
do?
Friday.
You did. You didn't tell me that.
Well, guys, freaking chum.
You told me you were out with family.
No, not Friday night.
Oh, I think we have an image of your car here or your truck. You're driving a truck now. Looks like
Well,
I
more
eat
than
MILF and cookies. That's your truck there, isn't it?
Wait, what? No. I got hung over. I didn't get home till 6:30 a.m. It was a rough night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is your truck.
I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it got a trampoline in the back? Then it's definitely
Yes.
his. Yeah,
No.
it's definitely his then.
Okay.
Well, how'd your date go?
It ended at 6:30 in the morning. So
Ooh, was she married or is she actually single?
no, she's single. I covered this morning on.
Yay.
Oh yeah, like that's the big achievement. Seriously, Tom.
So no window edges this time.
And the house only had one floor.
Actually, Tom,
The fact that you paid attention to that confirms everything we knew.
Tom,
No, But what
that's-
was awkward is I met her kid on the way out the door.
That's not what he was
Oh,
doing
man.
at all, Tom. He was setting up his new franchise.
Oh,
Did you just say
Lord.
that you're the milkman dropping off an order? And
It was so awkward. She's like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Hi." She's like, "Is my mom awake?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's in the room. She's like, "I know where it is."
She was pretty nonchalant about that, it sounds. I mean,
That was the thing. Some strange Mexican dude walking out your house at 6:30 in the
Yeah.
morning, and she
you're
wasn't
not the
freaked-
first.
and the daughter wasn't freaked out.
That's what I mean. You're not the first.
I thought I was special.
He
He may
thought
be
you were
the last,
special.
though. He may be the last.
Does that mean Mikey's getting married?
No, it's not like that. No.
All right, that's more like it. Nikki D is in the house and says, "Hot take: I don't think Mission Impossible 7 will reach $1 billion at the box office. Early projections have it opening lower than Indiana Jones domestically. Will it be viewed as a failure if it doesn't reach $1 billion?" Okay, well, it's a good question. Because I actually, on Mr. H's podcast, said there's a few things that are going against this movie. And one of them being this big bloated film syndrome we're dealing with right now. I don't think it's, I mean, you can attribute superhero fatigue to it, but I think it goes beyond that. Because as I say, the proof is in the pudding this year. When we have had no hits, everything has underperformed except for Mario Brothers, which overperformed, and Spider-Verse, which overperformed. Other than that, no other franchise movie, no other sequel, no other original property this summer of these big movies has done anything. And Mission Impossible is facing some competition on top of it all.
The other problem is, Tom, that it has a title that looks like a mathematical formula.
Well, it's part 7, part 1 on top of it all.
It's M times I minus 7.1 or something.
Yeah. -7 to the power of 1 or
The
something.
power of 1, yeah.
So
Don't
we'll
bet
see.
against Tom Cruise.
Yes, it has a lot more going for it than some other things.
Don't bet
but-
against Tom Cruise.
Well, what does he
even
have to
John
make?
Wick 4 kind of underperformed. It performed decent for John Wick films, but it should have gone up more than that.
It was 3 hours, man. That's why.
Yeah, that was a part of the problem.
Surprised that 4 made the money die. If anything, that I actually expected to make less. That just seems to
It
be
did
the
okay,
number
yeah.
That was okay for John Wick, because the movies all did get bigger as time went on. They just never became like a $1 billion franchise. And you know what? That's fine. Not everything needs to be a $1 billion thing.
No, but it does deserve, I guess, a mention. But
yeah, I see Mission Impossible. I do see it earning more than Indiana Jones worldwide. Domestically, I think it was going to be a bigger question, but I think Indy 5 is dead on arrival in the States.
My Mission Impossible is going to earn triple your Flash.
Probably.
Oh god,
Might.
yeah. Yes.
I just wonder if it's going to break that billion. That's a good question. Warrior Justice says if a black...
We can't read these.
If a black
I'll
man
take that
touches
bet.
himself... Go ahead and read it if you want.
No, Script was saying he'll take my bet.
Oh, no, that was CC. You can't tell Canadians apart, you white supremacist.
Oh,
We do sound the same.
That's why I need a crayon to like fill in Script.
Mikey, by the way, Mikey, have you had your induction meeting yet for the card, the supremacy card? If not, hit me up.
Oh yeah,
after the
there's
show.
meetings.
Hit me up after the show, and we'll give you the inside info on the card. Okay.
You guys are gonna be jealous. Script's gonna come visit me, and when he comes back here, his avatar's gonna be all suntanned out from being on the island.
We got meetings, and you get a hood.
Oh,
and
we got
all that
everything.
stuff. Warrior Justice says if a black man touches himself, is that considered black on black crime? I call a homeless man Spider-Man since he had no way home. Actually, these are pretty light for you today, Warrior Justice. These aren't so bad. Actually, I like the black on black crime. That was kind of funny. Warrior Justice then says it's okay to be wrong. Mexican Tony #Flash rules. Mecha J says Batgirl would have been Batman Beyond Cringe. Exactly. Actually, you deserve that for that. Detailed Devil says, what's up with Aquaman 2? Can Gunn re-sign Momoa, but not identical role, I think? Aquaman 3 Lobo, and to set up Lobo without killing Aquaman 2 sales. Aquaman 2 reshoots to segue foreshadowing. No. What? People are looking way too much into this stuff, guys. I have gotten so many messages, and I understand it's not your guys' fault. This is James Gunn's fault and Warner Brothers' fault and the way they've handled this thing. I've gotten so many messages asking me, is George Clooney going to be the new Batman and Batman Beyond? And I say almost with unequivocally no. And the same thing with the Momoa thing. Unless they're going to keep him as Aquaman, which I don't see happening, they're going to wait until after Aquaman 3, and then they'll announce Lobo is going to be either like the bad guy in Superman or something like that.
Or being a Disney or being a HBO Max series or something.
Something to that effect, exactly. And at that point, then we'll know what's going on there. He is playing politics now, but it's getting ahead of him. It's getting to the point where people are like, okay, we know you're lying. You're being a politician. Enough's enough. Just be real with us.
Yeah.
But he's going to have to keep playing this game until Aquaman 2's out. So we're stuck dealing with it for at least another half year.
Don't believe anything that James Gunn says with regards to the quality of the movies coming out, because it's his job as the head of the studio now to make sure that he doesn't do anything that could be considered impeding the profitability potential of those films.
Tom, Script, and Nick have to leave.
Yeah, I know. We got to wrap this up here. I'll cut. How many more we got here? You guys got enough time to do 3 more?
Sure.
C-Man says Variety headlines: Disney Chief Diversity Officer Latrona Newton exit exclusive. Actually, I had that coming up here, but I think we're going to save that for the morning show.
Oh my God! Thank God, I hate that.
Wasn't Latrona Newton a villain in Batgirl?
That was Latrine. That was Latrine.
Just sounds like a villain in Batgirl.
I'm the Latrine. Mecha J says, so going by Script's description of the F4, Venture Brothers did an accurate representation of them with their parody.
No, I mean they did a very different version of them with their parody, but not accurate. Like Fantastic Four, again, I find them a very interesting family to read. I actually like reading them, but I find them to be horrible people personally.
That's astoundingly ridiculous, man. But I can't go there with my blood pressure.
That's okay. We'll have a pleasant conversation about that because you have a lot of salient points that are very, very true to that character, to those characters. And it's like I look at them and I think if I were in a room with these people, I would hate every single one of them, except for maybe Ben Grimm. I probably would be on Ben's side with a lot of stuff.
Ben would, yeah.
Should they have an Fantastic Four, Mission Impossible, and the Fast and Furious crossover? It could be something like MI74X.
Yeah.
Or something like
so many
that.
numbers. I was led to believe there'd be no math here.
Too bad. Math is racist, and we're racist.
That's true. Well, certainly not Sue. Come on, man. She's a sweetheart. But anyway.
So Jack White
says she's super racist.
But yeah.
Sue is trying to hold everything together.
With their force fields.
With their force fields. Yeah, I think Sue should be. Many times I'm wondering, like, why is she staying with Reed? It's got to be the money. It's got to find money.
Yes, they were horrible each other in the 70s.
Storm in a mental institution for the slow.
Yeah, and then Jack White asked about.
You're starting to talk me into it. Johnny's really mean to Ben. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Nick.
Tom sent.
No. I was just trying to get us out of here because
I do love Ben. I do love Ben.
Jack sent you some sausages, Tom.
Sausages. I love sausages. Jack White says, Tom, did you check out the links I sent you last night? Yeah, I did look at the Superman one, which I was already kind of aware of. I have not got to check out the other ones because I really just don't do the anime stuff yet. I'm getting there, guys.
No, you're not. Stop. No, you're not getting there anymore.
I'm going to be forced into it by Andre contractually.
How? Then I'm going to talk to
He'll
Andre.
trick me into it.
I'm going to talk to Andre then.
He already just said it's going to happen. So.
No. No.
Jack White says 70s. There's a new trailer for new Rurouni Kenshin anime, and it looks awesome.
I will definitely look out for that. I love the movies, and I'm the same as you, Tom. I've never particularly been into anime, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to go watch that new one, that new Rurouni Kenshin. But the Tokyo Revengers that Jack's talking about, I've seen the actually live action movies of those. So I've not seen the anime.
He's a fantastic character. If they do it right, I'm all for.
Oh, the Kenshin, yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then Pinochet's Helicopter Tour has been a member for 22 months. Thank you for that, Pinochet. Appreciate that. And with that, real quickly around the board here, everybody, why don't you do your outros and we'll get you all out of here. Who wants to start?
I like turtles.
Go ahead, 70s. You start then.
Well, not.
I like turtles.
I like turtles. Can we just talk about time travel for a minute? No, just
no.
So, just for a minute. Yeah, well, I'm going to check out, if you get the chance, my show yesterday with the marvelous Graham Bonnet, vocalist, rock vocalist, and singer of Since You've Been Gone, and all that good stuff. So it was a wonderful show. He's a lovely guy. We had a great time, and I did ask Tom about Since You've Been Gone. He said the fact that it's in Guardians has got nothing to do with him, because he's not the writer and he doesn't hold any of the rights to the song.
That was my main question, is if he even had anything to say or do.
It's a surprise to him, but he did say it's great because when he does live shows now and he plays the song live, it gets even more of a reaction every time it's in a movie or something. So that's great. So he's happy about it. Nothing to do with him. No.
Yeah, I was curious if he even had anything to do with the publishing.
The writer, it's really the writer, Ross Ballard. He says Ross Ballard's getting all the money. So anyway, carry on. Yeah, that was a great show yesterday. So check that out, everybody, on my channel if you get the chance.
All right. CC.
Got the usual karaoke on Friday nights, and also now on Saturdays I have paired up with Dr. Danger to do a show that promotes undiscovered indie artists. If you think about it like college radio mixed with music television and a bit of that YouTube live stream community, we'll discover and listen to some awesome music and talk about it on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern.
I got one for you. The Killer Dwarfs, Canadian band.
Oh, yeah, I love that band. I actually knew the guitar player from that band.
Yeah, you got them already.
A few times.
Cool.
They're the biggest band in Canada.
Yeah, and they're dangerous too. Very dangerous.
Klobby, what you got going on?
Well, nothing much. Tomorrow night I got my wild card Wednesday night, and Thursday night the Clubhouse with Raquel and Mark, and Saturday night Star Trek, the usual stuff. So thanks for having me, buddy. Great to be with this great panel and hail chat. Thank you all for being here tonight with us.
Yep. No problem, man. We're glad to have you. And then we got Nick here. You got Toxic Tuesday coming up. This will lead you over to there, from here to there. So you guys are going to be watching Missing in Action.
Is it Missing in Action?
You forgot to read the member chat.
Is it Missing in Action or Missing Action 2?
I already got the member chat.
Which one of them?
It's Mia. That's what it is. It's Mia.
Mia culpa.
Yeah.
No, Toxic Tuesday and 20 plus minutes. Come hang out. First one of 4 straight weeks of Chuck Norris. We're gonna do a whole Missing in Action, Hitman, Invasion USA, and Way of the Dragon for the next 4 weeks.
Tom, you didn't read the member chat.
I did address it before you guys got it in the chat.
Oh.
I said thank you, Pinochet, for having but yes, thank you again, Pinochet.
Pickle Trunk, you're fired.
No, it's fine.
Okay, you're rehired.
I was just trying to go fast because these guys need to get out of here. Script, speaking of people need to get out of here, what you got going
on? I'm probably going to be on your show tomorrow morning, but Thursday after Loki's Mornings of Mischief, I might go live to talk about a couple of little things I've been noticing in the trades. So look forward to that.
Sweet.
Join us for tomorrow morning for a new show called Insights with the Doctor.
He's not a real doctor, but he plays one on YouTube.
But he has insights.
I do.
He does own a stethoscope.
Insides or insights? I would hope he has insights.
I own a stethoscope and a microscope. So
that's right.
Do you use those?
Well, the microscope is 70 years old, so
don't answer that.
I mean, it still works. What? I don't use
don't answer that.
I don't really have anything that I need to look up. That's small. So
yes, Mr. Tickle Trunk.
You're fired. You're unfired. I need you. Come here.
Yeah, we need him. We can't let him go. Okay, you're rehired, Tickle Trunk. I need you.
Mike, you got anything going on?
So I watch Midnight's Edge in the morning tomorrow.
Oh, and Script, did you want to finish plugging like your Patreon or anything else?
Oh yeah, I'm working on some more articles for Patreon, and I've got a really cool video discussion that I had with Jeff from the World Class Bullshitters on Spider-Man. So if you like that stuff, go check it out on Patreon. It was a really fun talk with him.
Yeah, all right. Well, so look forward to all those things, kids. Until next time, though, we have to get out of here so Nick and everybody else can get their shows rolling. Check it out. Flip City Magazine. Take care of yourselves and each other.
This magazine is
Take 6.
This magazine is awesome. It's funnier than the last It's funnier than the last editorial I read from Scott Mendelson, says Tom Connors. Sign up today for Flip City Magazine. It's hilarious, humorous, and all kinds of other synonyms I can't think of at this moment in time. Flip City Magazine. Use our special code MIDNIGHT to get 10% off. Get it digitally or in paper form. That's right, we killed a tree just for you. Check out Flip City today.
Stop eating my sesame cake.